live button. Always takes a little bit of time just to make sure that it comes up, and then we can go for it. There's always this weird delay between like hitting go live and wondering if you're actually live, and then you look like a bit of an idiot to those people who join in. There we go. It is live. Terence, Team Flash, welcome, mate. Welcome.
Hey everyone, good morning. It's 9 a.m. in Vietnam, but yeah, really pleased to be on this podcast today with Chris. I'll just dive straight in. You know, I'm the founder and CEO of Team Flash. I started this company 2 years ago, but my history in esports dates back to over 13 years. So I started back in Singapore with the Dota community. That was Dota 1, really long time ago.
So many memories.
So much memories on that. Oh my god, spent so much time on that Warcraft 3 mod. But a couple years later, 2008, I joined one of the top professional gaming teams in the world. At the time, it was known as MYM, Medium Megas. So it was a really well team. Yeah, a lot of the older generation of esports people probably would have heard about that team. I was working for them as an esports journalist. So I was really big on content creation, writing articles on the team. And that really shaped my experience and perspective on esports going forward for the next decade. Because what I wanted to do was work with a professional team, empower the esports athletes, especially in my region. So I always had that vision to work, starting with Singapore and then going into the Southeast Asia region, right? And I've been in esports for almost 1 decade, and I've really seen the rise of esports here in Southeast Asia, which has been really interesting to see because it's very different here compared to any other region in the West or even in North Asia, right? Like in China, Korea, it's really different here in SEA. So today, I guess I'm here to really share a bit more insight on, how SEA is really, what's the landscape of esports here right now. And 2 years ago, as I mentioned, I started Team Flash. I raised some money. I got some angel investors. I remember when I started the team, I literally had like just one player in Singapore and like $40,000 in the bank. And today, we've raised a seed round of 1.5 million. That was last year in July. We have won 2 world championships for Arena of Valor last year as well. I think most people know Team Flash for that. Even though AOV isn't really a big international esport, in my opinion, because it's been talked about a lot as Tencent's big mobile game last year. There's been a lot of press, but like the real penetration, it has really been in the major Southeast Asia markets like Vietnam, Thailand, Taiwan. So I think that we've done a lot of good things in the past year, and I'm really here to share more on what's coming up for Team Flash and esports in the region as a whole. But we're also looking to Series 8 that's coming up next year. So there's a lot of interesting projects that if I can share today, I'd love to share.
Yeah, awesome, man. That I didn't know you were involved with MIM. That was you just probably saw it on my face. That's a massive Counter-Strike 1.6 throwback to me. I remember watching them play CS 1.6 so much, like basically when I was a kid, like 10 plus years ago. They faded off. What are they shut down today? They're not operating anymore?
I didn't catch the early part of what you said because I accidentally muted my mic.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I was saying, have MIM faded off into the distance? Do they still operate? What's happening?
I don't think they're in operation anymore. So like they closed a couple of years ago. When I worked for them, it was the Danish management. So like Mark Peter Fries, who was that? A couple of the other guys. I don't think they're in esports anymore. Then taken over by Wicked Esports, which was a German esports organization. And those guys are still doing something. They're actually running this agency called Stark Esports, and they're doing pretty well. They have like a roster of FIFA in Europe.
Yeah, interesting. And thanks to everyone who's joining into LinkedIn live stream as well. And obviously this will be uploaded later as a podcast. For those of you who are listening in a podcast, that might explain why we're running off the cuff or replying to people in the chat. But I always like to talk about, Terence, like I feel like there was almost a golden year of esports, thinking back to like 2008, like you were talking about with teams like MIM. You had, the Cyber Athlete Professional League, who was giving tens of thousands of dollars in prizes. You had the Championship Gaming Series in 2008, giving $30,000 salaries to 8+ Counter-Strike Source teams with people like Fatality commentating in arenas and such. And then I guess maybe because of the global financial crisis and a few other pressures, it kind of waned off. But like as big as esports was back then, and as big as it is right now, what are some of the main differences you see? Have people learned how to run better quality businesses? And why do you think that some of the drop-off happened around that kind of 08 or the 10s kind of time?
I mean, I think the ecosystem at that time was still really early, and even today,
Mm,
most people, especially in our region, would say that esports is still really nascent. And to me, back in the day, like we weren't ready for a lot of the growth that we were seeing, right?
mm,
So in terms of like MYM as an example, again, they paid some of the best salaries in the market. I remember Grubby at the time, the best Warcraft 3 player in the world. He was paid probably a salary that most professional gamers wouldn't dream of, even in other esports organizations as well. But I
mm,
think the business model is really important. The underlying concept of how you're going to make money as an esports team. I think most teams today, even in Southeast Asia, they don't look at that enough. So like most of them are doing it for other reasons, like they might do it for branding, or it
mm.
might be a pet project even. Like not everybody is running the team the way that if you're putting in like full-time resources and effort, there's a lot more you can do. And I think in Southeast Asia that there's a lot more that can be done, but back in the day, really, if I look at the changes and the landscape, I think overall it's just the mindset as well, the mindset of how you want to build a professional team, the overall idea of having a solid business model. That's really important, because at the time, most esport teams weren't making money, and today I think it's the same as well.
Mm. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think that's a good summary, and I haven't thought about it like that before, that people just weren't ready for the growth. And you see like the professionalism today versus back then. But there's one thing I definitely do miss from those days of esports, where it was much less fragmented, and not just because there were less titles, but because there were forums. Forums were king. So you knew that if you wanted to get anything done in Counter-Strike, you went to hltv.org, and
Mm,
that's where everybody hung out. If you wanted to
yeah.
get anything done in StarCraft 2, you went to Team Liquid's forums. You knew that everybody hung out in there, et cetera, et cetera. But now it's so hard with so many more Facebook groups. It's gone to a model where, yes, you can reach more people, but it
Yeah.
requires a lot more dollars in advertising. You need to pay influencers. You need to pay
Mm.
media like .eSports to get your stuff out there. It's really pay for play these days. Whereas in the past, like if I was in Australia launching a Counter-Strike tournament, I'd post on Got Games, because I knew that every single Australian Counter-Strike player had a forum account on Got Games, and that's where you were going to get the word out.
I do agree. I think a lot of the content has, the content landscape has kind of changed. So like in the past, there were a lot
Mm,
of esports media websites that were dedicated to creating content. Today, there still is, like there's sites like the Esports Insider, Esports
mm,
Observer. Back in the day, it was very much like you said, if you wanted to reach a certain community or a certain game community, like you would know where to go. So like back in the day, there was also Gosu Gamers, which right now I think they're still running, but right now I
yeah,
don't
that's
anybody
true.
visits them for content anymore.
Mm,
So it's kind of changed. Everybody's getting their content from social media, from Twitter, from Facebook. It's become a
mm,
lot more. I would say it's a lot more organic. Like it's a lot of user generated content as well. You know, um, yeah,
yeah.
and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it's just how the industry has sort of evolved, and how the fans are, getting their content nowadays. I think this will keep
Mm,
changing. Like I think that there are some really good esports media outlets that are doing great stuff. Like I mentioned, Esports Observer, I read them like every single day. They do so many great feature stories on the
mhm.
business of sports. Um, yeah, and I think this content landscape will keep evolving. Yeah.
Yeah, Ghost of Gamers. That's another massive name, and they had a big esports team as well. Yeah, that's another name that I haven't heard of in a while. So,
Yeah,
yeah, you're definitely right. Yeah. So,
yeah.
what'd you say? Sorry.
Rolling back the times.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's like a trip down memory lane. And you mentioned Grubby as well. For those people watching or listening, Grubby was like the esports star of the West for many years. He was sticking it to the Chinese and Koreans in Warcraft 3, like no other Westerner was, really. He was just a massive household name. And then, unfortunately kind of fell off a bit, but still around today. Heroes of the Storm and StarCraft. You still see @follow Grubby everywhere you go, and super nice guy. So, yeah, it's good to see, you have that history and the support. So let's go back to the start of Team Flash. So you said you raised around 40K in the bank. You had one player. There's so many people who approach me, and I'm sure you all the time. I've just made an esports team with my mates. I want to scale and grow. I want to put some of my own money into it, kind of thing. Can you go over like what some of the first steps were that you went through? You've got 40K in the bank. You've got one player. How do you make a team out of that? How do you make a brand out of that? What do you do first?
Man, so much things to look at, right? Like social media, business development. It's
Yeah.
really everything, fundraising. As you build the business, you've got to think about getting to the next round, getting more money in the bank. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
as an esports team, you're not going to make money in the first 2 years. That's guaranteed. Honestly, unless you get a really good franchise league slot, but that only happens in the West because in Asia there's not many franchise leagues at the moment, like only for mobile sports. But overall, yeah, I think when I started this company, I just had the vision of making gamers heroes. That's our vision, our tagline. And at the time, I didn't even know I was going to expand to Vietnam at the time. So like obviously we knew that we wanted to go to Southeast Asia, but we didn't know what was the order of expansion. We didn't know whether it was going to be Thailand first, Vietnam first. I think it was
Okay.
about which opportunity came to us at the time. So like we started in Singapore. Singapore is a really small market. I think anybody that knows esports and has been to our country, I recently won championship, did a esports invitational in Singapore. It was quite successful. But back in the day, even 2 years ago when I started this team, it was one player, and 40K, and I really had to think about how to make the money work for me. Because 40K isn't a lot of money, even 2 years ago. Like at the time, there's already Team Liquid, so many esports organizations, and Southeast Asia was still like quite nascent. There were not many good esports teams at the time, but even then, I knew that I was facing a big challenge. I had to really think about what was my 12-month plan. It's no point thinking of a 5-year plan. Like you can do financial projections, you can show investors like what it's going to be like in 5 years, the business. But it's really difficult right now to project because esports is moving so fast and new things are coming up, every quarter, every month. So it's really difficult to present a set of projections that are in line with the market. So for me, it's really about focusing on milestones every 3 months, right? So like thinking about what I'm going to do this quarter, this quarter. At the time, it was easy because it was only me running the company. I had a couple of partners. Like I had one guy who was doing just business development, but I was really getting it off the ground, making sure we signed the right teams, getting the brand out there. From FIFA in Singapore, we expanded. We tried investing into Dota 2 in Malaysia. We started a full-time team. We started a game house, and it was really difficult. I remember like when we were working with that team, the best position we got the entire year was like top 8 in the major qualifiers. Yeah, for Southeast Asia, and that was the best we got. And that's like minimal brand awareness because you don't really get into the big leagues, right? You don't go to a major, you don't go to a minor, you don't go to an offline event. So there's very little value that you can generate off that. So I started to look at different things around I think halfway in the year, and I realized mobile esports made a lot of sense. Yeah, so I started looking at the other markets in the region. So Vietnam at the time, really interesting market. I knew that they weren't really doing well in terms of monetization, but they had a lot of talent. Like Vietnam has been known as a region that has a lot of talent because with League of Legends, you've seen that Vietnamese teams are the best in the region, right? That's why they are a major region in Riot leagues. So for me, like when I looked at the other markets, I saw Indonesia, I saw Thailand, I saw Vietnam. These are the three main target markets, in my opinion, for esports in Southeast Asia. Anybody that wants to do esports in this region will be looking at one of these three markets. So at the time, we had an opportunity. So we went to Vietnam. We started a mobile gaming team. We actually took over an existing local team. They had no business operations, no infrastructure. It was just a team of 5 boys and 1 manager. Yeah, that's how esports, right? Like back in the day, it was
common. Yeah, so common.
Yeah, and I spoke to this guy. I remember he had quite a similar history like me. He had over 10 years of experience. He was a commentator. He had worked for Garena. And I spoke to him and I told him, I want you to be my local partner. And I want you to drive the brand up. Like, drive. We can go to the World Championship. We can win stuff. But that's like a 1 to 2 year plan because at the time the team was only 3rd in Vietnam, and we had to really work with them to make sure that they could actually perform first domestically and then go on to the world stage and do something there. So I managed to take that team from 3rd in Vietnam to 1st the following season. The first season we acquired them, we actually placed 3rd again. So we weren't the best by any means, but we managed to make a lot of changes over time. We managed to get the right players. We managed to build the right culture within the team. We really wanted to have a team that understood that obviously winning is important, It's a competitive team, right? It's the foundation of our success. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure that that team understood, like, the values that we wanted to impart, like teamwork, good communication, conflict resolution is really important in the esports team, because you're dealing with honestly, you're dealing with a bunch of teenagers. You've got to really have people that speak their language, and it's not easy, right?
Yeah.
I was having a chat with this director from Hollywood yesterday. He was telling me, it's very similar to managing artists. Like in the US, these boys or girls, like they're 18 years old, they're basically young millennials, and it's not easy working with people like that. They're still growing up, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done on a personal level to make sure they succeed professionally. That's the best way I can put it. Yeah. So honestly, the first part of it was really getting the brand out there, signing the right team. And it's not even about signing that many teams. I think I'll take a good example as well from Europe. Australis, they invested in the one team, CSGO, and they built an amazing lineup, and it's been a successful lineup because they've won so many world championships, they've won so many titles, but it's only one game. And they are arguably like an international esports organization. They just IPO'd. And it's really amazing to see how we've won just one title. And obviously the whole group, which IPO'd, had also a League of Legends franchise as well in Oregon, in the European Championship. But at the same time, when you look at that, you think, what's possible with just investing in one successful team, and just creating content of that, building the brand of that, making them as mainstream as possible. Because at the end of the day, if you have 5 guys that are super successful, it's better than having 30 guys in your organization that are like, tier 2, tier 3. That's the situation right now in Southeast Asia. I think a lot of team organizations are figuring that out. Like, a lot of them are rare to steer, in terms of talent acquisition, building the brand. Some of them think it's just about getting players, but that's not the case in my opinion. I think it's about getting the right team with the right values, and then branding in the right way. Yeah, that's
and there's a few other teams that have done similar, right? OG did the same thing. They pick, and I'm a big fan of that model. There's another organization in Australia that did it very well, which was Chiefs. They became a League of Legends team. They won everything for 3 years, and then they're like, okay, now it's time to get into CSGO. And similar with OG with Dota 2, right? They're like, well, we've won 2 internationals, we won a bunch of majors. Now it's time, we'll get into CSGO. And there's been quite a few teams like that. I really like that because you can also pay enough attention. There's an organization who I won't name, who I've worked with a bit, but their strategy, instead of having the best team in any game, was to have the 4th best team in every game. But it's so hard for them to keep up with everything. Even if you're thinking about monetary, obviously you're not paying them all salaries at all, or much salaries. But even if you've got a peripheral sponsor, which I was at the time, every 6 months they're asking me for another 15K worth of peripherals. Like, that adds up a lot for me as a sponsor. And then they're churned because they're not looked after as well, and they're not given as much. So when they are offered salaries, they'll leave, the next will come in. And then you can build a negative name for yourself because you're known as the team that can't hold a team, or organization that can't hold a team. You're churning through them. So it's similar in business, and I've had this problem a lot myself in the past in esports, and I try to help a lot of other people who have the same, where everything's so exciting. You're like, I want to be an agency, and I want to be an influencer manager, and I want to be an esports team, and I want to run events, and you realize you don't do any of them well, and you make no money. There was a great story I listened to in a book or a podcast about an app that got this is a very loose example, but it like 500% or 300% plus its revenue by deleting most of its features, because there were just too many things going on the app. People weren't sure what it was for, and they'd lose interest and lose track. When they dialed it down to be something very interesting, very simple to use, that's why it goes well. And I think that's why something like TikTok does very well, because you know that when you go on TikTok, it does one thing. It does funny videos where people are doing things like dancing or comedy to sounds, and there's going to be a lot of those. And then you can just churn through that simplistic content. Whereas if you go to Facebook, it's people arguing, there's groups, there's people selling things, there's ads coming at you all the time. Like, there's so much different things going on.
Yeah, I think that's great. Ultimately, it's what people remember you by, what your brand means in the market. People always remember you by one main message, right? So what are you really known for? Where you've made your name. So for us, I think most people know us today as the Vietnamese esports organization that won a world championship. And if you come to Vietnam today, and ask around, who's the best professional team, or you ask around, who do you know in esports or gaming, people will say Team Flash. That's a fact. And I've been to the street, I've been to like eating dinners just on restaurants, and then people are like coming up to our players. So like, we've created a real atmosphere within the country where people are proud of their esports players. Yeah.
And it's not, and to touch on that too, it's not all about winning. Like if you take FaZe, for example, they don't have the best team in the world in anything right now. However,
Yeah.
there's no way you couldn't call them the biggest or one of the biggest organizations in the world, but they're just known for content and being cool. So like you were saying, every time I talk to a new team, I always talk about, what do you want to be known for? Do you want to be known for the best team? Do you want to be known for the best content? Do you want to be known for the best viral marketing? Like you can pick an angle, but you can't do everything, because I think people so much in this industry try to do everything all the time. So,
True.
so speaking of like picking your place, I want you to help me to understand more about Southeast Asia. So everybody lumps it together, right? But there's so many different countries within Southeast Asia. There's so many different languages, different municipalities, different laws, and even different islands between each country. So how do you go about tackling that kind of industry? If you're supposed to be an expert on Southeast Asia, you've got so much to pay attention to, let alone all of the West or China or anywhere else in Asia.
I think Southeast Asia, when people call it one region, it's actually 10 unique different countries. So like people have got to realize that, you know, the culture and the language is really so different. And I often get asked this question, what if one day a big esports organization from the US like Cloud9, Team Liquid decides to come into Southeast Asia? Fnatic has made that move with a Dota team here. But I think really building a business in Southeast Asia is uniquely challenging, because you've got to look at many different factors. Again, it's not just building a team, a successful roster. You've got to look at local compliance, government regulations. There's so much things to look at, you know, when you're building a business here, tax laws. There's so many things, you know, I can't start, you know, but yeah, overall, like, you know, building a business here, and especially an esports team, it's really about understanding the unique culture that the fans have here, that I think a lot of people don't pay enough attention to. Like me, I'm Singaporean, and when I came into the Vietnam market, I made sure that the first thing that I did was to respect the market, and really understand as much as possible, be as open as possible, because I knew that it was going to be a long ride, and I knew that, you know, in order to be successful, you know, I would really have to deep in the Vietnamese culture, not just in esports, but in like how Vietnamese people live, you know, how do they talk, how do they interact with each other. And that's really important, because the next step for esports to go further is to bring it to the mainstream, you know, bring it to the big screens, get more people knowing about it, get more people talking about it, like, you know, how people talk about football. So like even non-football fans will know the biggest football clubs, the best football players like Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi. But I think in esports, we've not reached that level of mainstream, obviously, you know. A lot more people are talking about esports nowadays compared to the old days. Like most people actually know what esports is compared to last time. I think last time it was really like, you know, what's esports? Is it gaming? Is it, you know, nobody has any idea what esports is. And today is,
yeah, for sure. So can you tell me about certain trends that might happen in parts of Southeast Asia that don't exist in others? Like you were mentioning before, you know, League of Legends is popular in some countries and not others. Obviously, Dota 2 is quite large in SEA, but I'm not sure if that's segmented per country. Are there some major differences between countries that people mightn't understand?
Sure. I think the popularity of different esports, like, you know, what's interesting to see is like, let me take Arena of Valor as an example, and then there's this other game called Mobile Legends that's quite popular in Indonesia. I think people have heard about it. So what you see is that in any country in Southeast Asia, usually they, you know, it's very popular in one unique genre. So like in the mobile game, MOBA genre, you know, it will be AOV or Mobile Legends in a specific country. So like in Vietnam, you would say AOV would be the top title, and then Mobile Legends would be nearly like non-existent. Like people would play it, but nobody would really talk about it. And it wouldn't, you know, the growth rates are not as high as compared to the top title. And then in Indonesia, it's the direct opposite, because most people are playing and watching Mobile Legends. Nobody knows or cares about AOV, you know? So it's kind of like the reverse. You know, you wouldn't see like a game in the same genre perform head to head. Yeah, that's how I would put it. You know, you would see one title be dominant and the other title would nearly be almost non-existent. That's the truth,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
And with Dota and League of Legends, those were the early days of the mobile genre, you know. But with those games, I think Dota was definitely the standout, because League of Legends wasn't popular in Southeast Asia, in my opinion. Like Vietnam was the only country where it had any traction, you know. And but since mobile games have come out, you know, mobile esports has emerged, you know, PC titles have sort of taken the backseat. Like Dota is still quite popular, but I've seen that, you know, it's actually regressed a lot over the past year. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's interesting looking at those differences, and it follows. I talked to one of the PUBG mobile esports directors from Tencent, and they said something similar with battle royales. That basically, once one battle royale has control of a country, it's game over for every other one. They basically don't exist, and that's exactly what you're saying about the MOBAs as well. And that was my question to lead up. That I'm glad you already answered. So it seems like it's the same across all of these mobile titles, where you don't see that as much in PC. You know, Dota 2 is quite popular in Australia, and so is League of Legends and other countries in the West. But do you think that maybe it's more of a, I guess, like a political term, like a swing voting kind of place that you've got with SEA? It's all or nothing to one side or the other.
Yeah, I think being first to market is really important. And as a publisher, most publishers know this. Like they know they've got to get their game out as soon as possible. You know, they've got to have a strong esports roadmap, not just a good development roadmap, right? It's one thing creating content for the main group, but if you want to create an esports ecosystem, it's entirely different, right? You've got to build a league, community events, you've got to build a strong fan base, you've got to build strong content offline and online. You know, and when I look back at that, some trends that I saw. So as a mobile gaming user, you know, when I start playing a mobile game, I start investing a lot of money and time on it, right? So, you know, especially the money part, because I think you keep buying content, you don't want to move away from that because you've already invested, you know, and then a new mobile game comes in like 3 months later and you're like, okay, this is cool, maybe you'll try it, you know, and unless it's really, really good to cut through that, all of that, you know, the likelihood is you're going to stick with the first game, you know, because you've invested so much time and energy and you've unlocked all those skins, you've unlocked all those heroes. You know, most of these mobile games in Southeast Asia, it starts free to play, but a lot of the content has to be unlocked or purchased. So like, you know, you kind of understand why the fans are like, you know, very good in one specific title because they've invested a lot.
Yeah, that brings me really well into my next question. So there's been some discussion on my LinkedIn post recently. I shared a post about Newzoo on trends to watch in esports. One of the main ones, obviously mobile gaming in esports is growing, but there was a lot of negativity, and I found that really interesting in there and some misinformation. But one of the main points that I'd like you to clarify on that I don't have an answer for is what's the lifetime like for these mobile esports? Obviously, if you're looking at a game like Dota 2, I mean, that was beta in 2011 when they were running $1 million tournament. You're looking at League of Legends, you know, they just had their 10 years of league anniversary. How do you see these mobile games functioning? Are they going to be operating or have been operating for 10 years plus, or do people churn through them a little bit faster?
Yeah, I've been following that stream of negativity online. Like I've been seeing a lot of it on Twitter, on LinkedIn. You know, a good friend of mine, Jeff Chow, as well, has been very vocal about
he's a legend.
You know, I've read articles, great stuff. You know, I think he's done a lot of good research. You know, for me, you know, when I look at that trend, you know, like I'm thinking, you know, churn in terms of users. Definitely there's going to be churn over time, right? I wouldn't use any specific market data or numbers, but like just looking at the trend, I think overall people, you know, when they play mobile games, you know, they actually let me just think how to phrase that. Okay. So can you repeat the last part of the question? I kind of like lost.
Yeah, so mainly it's about what's the expected lifetime of these mobile titles. We've seen League and Dota operating on a high tier global esports scale for 10 years plus, but there's been a lot of concerns from people saying that mobile games don't have the same longevity. People don't stick to them as hard and they're churning through much more often. Have we seen any mobile titles that are already at 3 to 5 years plus with a complete and proper ecosystem and that will reach 10 years?
I think, you know, esports, you know, most people can agree that esports, having a good esports strategy helps to extend the life cycle of your game. You know, helps to really increase the community, the direct community of the gamers, and then bring in more additional fans. You know, people that were not playing the game necessarily might hear about your game and then start playing. But overall, I'll say mobile esports in this region, like if you look at the top mobile titles, Arena of Valor, Mobile Legends, PUBG Mobile, you know, they're all still doing quite well in the market. You know, in certain local markets, it might have gone up, might have gone down, but overall, you know, you still hear about these titles, they're still running. I think the life cycle of most mobile games are quite short. Like usually you're not looking at more than a 3-year life cycle. So it is really short. And Arena of Valor is coming to that 3 to 4 year cycle, you know, Mobile Legends itself. So it's quite interesting to see, you know, after the first 3 years, how these mobile esports do, because success, they're very successful, you know, in their respective local markets, you know, but going forward, can they continue to maintain that success? Can they bring up to a new level? there's a lot of questions that needs to be answered, especially in terms of esport leagues, because right now a lot of these are not franchised, and there's also a discussion on whether, a franchise league right now, whether we're ready for that, because in the US, I know some of those franchise leagues aren't necessarily doing as well, as we think they are. I haven't seen the actual financials because they've not posted that, they're not public, but just looking at that, it's about doing the right thing at the right time and making sure that these mobile titles can still upload. The publishers, obviously that's more on the publishers, but we as team owners, as fans, we've got to realize that, we all play an important part in keeping it alive and doing well.
Yeah, and you touched on something important twice. Once recently and once during that discussion was about setting up an ecosystem. I think that a lot of people who don't understand about how to develop a strong esports title is there needs to be a certain type of game to be considered an esport. And for me, I generally say that needs to be a high skill ceiling and easy entry level and a limited and controlled amount of randomness within the game. But B, you're really signing yourself up for a whole ecosystem. If you look at what Dota 2 does, they've got 8 majors and eight minors a year that they're running around the world, that they're funding with millions of dollars, and then they've got a $30+ million tournament that happens once a year. But they're back-end funding that. They're helping to market that, and they're running that tournament. If you look at League of Legends, they've got hundreds of staff all over the world whose full-time job it is to run esports. They've got paid commentators who are part-time in Australia. They've got full-time esports people. Even in Australia, we're such a minor region for them. There's still 4 to 5 people in Australia who are full-time working on esports, just running their league. So you're really signing yourself up for something massive there. And then you've got to run your global tournaments, and they've got, how many regions do they have? It's something like 15+ that all feed into one giant global finals with millions of dollars of prize pool. They're paying back-end funding to all of these teams to help them to operate. So there's so much that needs to come into that. And we've been talking to a few clients about that recently. They're like, how do I make my mobile game, my PC game, my whatever, an esport? And I go, well, boy, well, this is a long conversation. It's great for me as an agent because it's a lot of good work that I can do, and that's my passion, but it's expensive. And it takes a lot of time, and it's not a guaranteed success. But you're signing yourself up, like you were saying, for a lot of work developing, but then maintaining that ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I also recently had a consultation call on this new gaming developer that wanted to enter the mobile esports market, and I told them, like, you're going to be in for the long haul, and it's a lot of investment over time, because you're building up a community, you're building up a real league ecosystem. It's like running a different company with a different set of numbers, right? And it is a different company at the end of the day, because it's a lot of, you got to look at localization, you got to look at so many things. Yeah.
And there's a good comment in the chat here from Jamie Lewin, who's someone that works at Riot, saying that the mobile games with esports as part of the ecosystem do seem to have a longer life cycle, which I agree with, because you're keeping people in the ecosystem. And the other really interesting thing too, after talking to some people who make hyper casual games, like tap kind of games, all they did was introduce an esports style thing into their game, which was a leaderboard with the competition, and they saw a 300% increase in both user retainment and also money revenue generation per user for them over that period of time. And it was literally just some sort of scoreboard where if you do a thing over 7 days, the highest person wins some free in-game currency or something like that. So it shows that adding some sort of interactivity and competition does help a lot. But that's definitely not esports. Putting up a leaderboard is a lot less than hiring full-time commentators, getting Mineski to run your $1 million esports tournament and things like that too. So yeah, a lot of different money. So let's talk a little bit about revenue streams. So that's something that I went on a bit of a tirade with last year. I was sick of esports teams coming to me without a single salesperson asking for me to do their job for them without paying me. I was sick of teams only focusing on 12-month sponsorships like traditional esports teams and such. And then we've seen the meteoric rise with things like 100 Thieves and FaZe doing well in merchandise, doing well in content production. I've seen that you guys have just signed on a brand new airline, which is awesome. That's one of the first ever airline sponsors of a team in esports. There's a very small handful of those. So I'd love to learn from you about your current revenue lines and how you may differ from the norm of just a 12-month sponsorship, and what are you looking at in the future to generate money for your company as you're looking to do your Series A?
Yeah, I think the 12-month model, like you mentioned, the 12-month sponsorship program, it's not necessarily bad, but I think it's like, how you want to really craft that according to your organization's capabilities. So like, it really depends, for us, when we signed Vietjet, it was, obviously, it's a really good deal, and it's one of the first airline partnerships in the region. I think the first was Air Asia in 2008, They came into the market. They started by sponsoring a team and then investing into a team. Well, we did the Vietjet deal just last year, and that deal has really shifted in terms our perspective on what we can do in terms of sponsorship numbers, because it's our first six-figure sponsorship across a year. It's a huge deal, and it's a really big deal in terms of Vietnam as well, because I should mention that in the Vietnam esports market, no team has managed to do six figures, and five-figure deals are even hard to come by, even for a 12-month program. That kind of tells you where the state of the market is right now in terms of revenue generation. Like I said, I think esports monetization is still really early, but looking at the trends overall for esports team in Southeast Asia, and the main revenue generators right now would be sponsorship and streaming. So sponsorship in terms of different categories. So we've signed up an airlines partner. We have a gaming gear partner in Logitech, which is a very familiar name in the esports industry. They've been supporting for a long time. We're trying to enter the non-endemics. That's what everybody in esports will tell you nowadays in terms of tapping into the real sponsorship dollars, going for the non-endemics. The FMCG brands, the car brands, the insurance, financial brands. Those are all target categories that we have looked at. In every market. And it's really a long game, because the first part is really education. Like Jamie, I'm a close friends with Jamie, and Jamie knows that talking to these brands is not easy, because he's also handling that for Riot, and it's really about getting them to understand first the landscape of where esports is at, what it really is, how you can use it to provide more value to your company, to your marketing strategies. And for us, like looking at the entire strategy, we know that the 12-month program is it's a norm in any esports team, right? But then looking forward, how do we generate more daily recurring revenue? I think that's the question, because it's very seasonal, like sponsorship. Once you sell sponsorship, you need to find other ways of generating revenue, and that's not easy, right? So we're looking at different business lines. We're looking at potentially setting up a F&B business, using the main brand. So like it's really about using esports teams as a launch pad for something bigger, building more products, building more businesses. I read an article on the Esports Observer yesterday talking about the 1 billion valuation game for esports teams. A really good article, and there was a part in that article that mentioned, specifically esports teams nowadays are being used as a launch pad for other businesses. So one of the most popular business lines will be a MCN model, a multi-channel network. So building like a team of streamers, content creators, putting it under your brand. They're not necessarily competitive athletes, but they're here to also create content, make the brand more popular. So like FaZe Clan, 100 Thieves are the best examples in the US. They are doing that. So for us as an esports organization, sponsorship makes up almost like 30 to 40% of our annual income. And then streaming maybe about another 30%. The remaining 30% really comes down to prize money, merchandising, other revenues. Streaming in particular is quite significant in our region, because even when I started the team in 2017, I remember like 6 months later, we signed a six-figure deal with Nemo TV, which is a really well broadcasting platform in Southeast Asia, but actually it's a spin-off from Huya in China. So it's under the same company. And then we just signed a contract with Facebook Gaming a few months ago, which has also increased our revenue significantly coming into the new year.
Yeah, that leads perfectly into the next conversation, actually, which is the real dominance and prominence of Facebook in Southeast Asia, whereas in gaming and esports, where essentially it doesn't exist in any other country in the world.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like the main broadcast platforms for esports today, like YouTube, Facebook, in Vietnam is definitely those two. Nemo has dropped off a bit. They came into the market really, really strong. They came in with really big contracts for pro players, for teams. That has really helped the market at that point of time in terms of giving them the money to even stay afloat. Because most teams today obviously are just trying to survive. They're not making money, right? Yeah. And Nemo really helped help us as well in 2018, because honestly we were struggling at that time to make revenue, and it was really good that they came to the market, but I think they've sort of dropped off. Like they haven't really found a sustainable business model. After acquiring top players, top streamers, they've had to let most of them go after the first year. So like for platforms as well, what is the long-term business model? It really comes down to that, how they're going to make money. They might not make money now. They might spend a lot of money to get market share, to acquire the best players. But what's the long-term plan? And it's the same for any business in esports.
Yeah, I always wonder about those streaming deals. It's really interesting. We're in contact with a lot of influencers around the world that has various offers from Twitch to Facebook to to Caffeine, to Mixer, whoever else,
Yeah.
for seemingly ridiculous amounts of money. But the interesting thing to me always that I go back to them and say, what support are they providing you after they sign you on? Because you've seen the reports around Shroud had like an 80% drop in viewership, I think, going to Mixer. And similar with Disguised Totes now, he's on Facebook. He's had a similar 50+% drop in viewership and such. So while that payment might be good in the short term, because a lot of these people I know are getting offered a 1-year deal of X amount over the year that's paid monthly, my question to them is, what support are they providing you? Like, if I was to sign to Facebook as a creator, let's say they wanted to pay me 200K USD to sign, I would also be asking for a 200K marketing budget that I had full control over, that I could either pump into Google ads, that I could pump into Facebook ads. If nothing else, Facebook ads, because surely they can buy ads off themselves for cheaper. So it's a bit easier for them to funnel through. The same way that back in the day when I was at Thermaltake and I had, sweet FL money for marketing, I would be able to use my money to buy Thermaltake products internally to supply to people. And that was a cost-effective way of supporting LAN parties and that kind of stuff, because it's not retail. We buy it at cost price off ourselves internally to market. And that's what I always think is interesting. But why, for you, can you list a couple of reasons as to why Facebook is so prominent across all of Southeast Asia?
I know that Facebook isn't as popular in the West. So like when I study the fan data of most esports organizations in the US, in Europe, Facebook is not their main marketing channel to the fans. It's mostly Twitter, a bit of YouTube content, but I would say Twitter is the main social media medium that most esport teams use today. But in Southeast Asia, it's the opposite, right? So the social media trend as well is quite different for the fans. Facebook is the number one platform in Vietnam, not just for esports, but for anything. Everybody using Facebook. And, the Facebook gaming program, I think they've reported that Vietnam is the number one performance market in terms of just number of hours watched, viewed, streamed. And in Vietnam, I think when we looked at streaming partnerships, moving from Nemo to Facebook was quite a logical switch, because Facebook offers a lot more than just the contracts, right? The exclusive streaming fees. They're looking at offering you ad inventory that you can use. They have a certain algorithm as well that they use to boost up their signed creators. So like if you're a signed creator, because there are also a lot of people streaming on the platform. It's like Twitch, right? It's like an open platform. Anybody can stream. You and I can stream today. The same thing, but as a signed creator, you get so much more benefits in terms of visibility. And that's really important, because you want to build your brand. And in a market like Vietnam, where Facebook is the number one social media channel, it made a lot of sense to just go into that market as a creator, as a professional team that wanted to build our popularity. And it was really a logical step for us. And monetization aside, we do like Facebook's long-term plan of where they want to head in terms of gaming content creation, how they want to monetize for themselves, for the creators. I think it's a lot more sustainable compared to most of the platforms. Obviously, Twitch has done the best worldwide, but I think they've seen a lot of competition, especially in the second half of last year. So like Mixer is the big name that came in and soaked for their biggest names like Ninja, Shroud, and in Southeast Asia, it's really all Facebook right now, in my opinion. But it's quite interesting. I saw YouTube is coming to the market as well, but I haven't actually spoken to them 6 months ago. But I'm quite interested to see what's their long-term plan, how fast their rollout is going to be. Because when I first met them, the YouTube gaming team, the global team, they told me they were not interested in buying content, because they felt that their ecosystem was strong enough and people were creating enough content, and their value proposition was not live streaming, it was VODs, right? It's creating content on the YouTube channel, building that library of content that people can keep viewing and viewing over time. Live stream content is a bit different, and YouTube wasn't a big player in that space, but that seems to have changed recently. Like I've seen them signing some big creators, and there has to be big fees because those creators were previously signed to other platforms.
Like Courage JD and such. And YouTube seems to me to be such an interesting proposition with your static videos as well as your live videos, because they can do things like put you on trending and boost you in the algorithm that can help you get to 1 million subscribers. And we know that once you get to 1 million subscribers, you could, with high earnings potential, up to 500K a year, you could be earning. So that's a great amount. And, just by providing that support for the minimum guarantee of, maybe they ask you to stream 30 hours a month or something like that. Who knows? And that's pretty common with some of these kind of deals. But yeah, definitely a lot of opportunity. So for you, a lot of this stream and podcast, we've talked about mobile, talked about SEA, we've talked about your diversification to these non-endemic mainstream sponsors now with VietJet, etc. Besides that, what else do you have coming up over the next 12 months? You mentioned a Series A, and what else are you working on?
I'll try and say as much as I can. For us, it's really about taking the team from just being a purely competitively winning team, because a lot of people look at Team Flash today and they recognize us as world champions of esports or Arena of Valor, right? But esports is huge. There's so many titles right now. So being world champion of AOV is not as big as being world champion of League of Legends, and it takes a lot more to get there, right? But we've definitely done a lot in terms of just establishing the brand, at least in Vietnam. And within Southeast Asia, most people know about us. I think the next step is to take us from a team that's known in Southeast Asia to a team that's known internationally. And a lot of things have to happen for that to happen, right? But for us, the main thing will be cementing our market position in Vietnam, specifically because I really like this country. I really like the passion of the fans here. I've been to the esports stadiums, and the fans are amazing. Some of the best fans I've seen in the world. I've been to events in and out of Asia, so like that's a big testament as well to in terms of how big the fan base, how strong they are, how much they support their local heroes. Vietnam football as well is a good example, because moving a bit to traditional sports, I followed the rise of Vietnam football over the last 1 year, and it's crazy. Like, people are so patriotic and so passionate about their national heroes, and that's really important when you're looking to establish an esports team as well. You want to sign good players, but at the same time, you want to make sure the fans get behind them. And that doesn't happen in every country in Southeast Asia. In Singapore, it's really difficult. I remember we won like 2 Asian championships for FIFA Online 4, and there was like a bit of talk on the media. I did a press release, I sent it out, we went on TV. A week later, nobody remembers. So that's a bit hard. Countries like that, the fan culture isn't necessarily developed for certain reasons. People aren't just as passionate. So in Vietnam, it's really developed, and we want to really leverage off that, right? As a business, we really want to pay attention to our fans, and that also means creating great products for them. So like merchandising is a great revenue stream, and also something we've looked at a lot. We have our own dedicated merchandising department. We want to really go deep into that this year, and it's part of also bringing us more into the mainstream, making us more a lifestyle brand like 100 Thieves. I think everybody has looked at the model and think like, I want to be like that, but like we also want to grow the brand a different way. And that's why I mentioned, like, for example, the F&B market here in Vietnam is really, really big, and I don't think many esports teams have looked at that, as a potential revenue generator. But it's something that we think that creates more brand affinity. People are consuming our products, they have more connection to the brand, they have more connection to Flash, and that's something that we want to do as well. F&B projects. And then lastly, we're also looking at building a esports training facility in Ho Chi Minh. Yeah, so actually right now we do have a facility in partnership with the Singapore Sports Hub, but that's in Singapore. In Vietnam, we have two to three gaming houses set up for different teams. But next year is actually the year where we want to centralize everything. We want to build a dedicated esports training facility for elite athlete training, for streaming, content creation. But more than that, we want to build something integrated. So everything that I mentioned earlier, like merchandising, F&B, everything is going to be integrated within this facility. And that's part of our fundraising stage.
Yeah, a lot going on. So you mentioned you have a Series A coming up. Are you able to mention at this time how much you're raising and what sort of investors you're looking for?
I mean, for us, we are looking at 5 to 7, 8 million. That would be the targeted round size. But for us, in terms of looking for investors, I've always tried to look for people that can add a lot of value outside of money. Anybody would say that as well. Any smart entrepreneur building a business would say that as well. You want to look for investors that can add a lot of value, open doors. But I think be less conceptual about that. I think we're looking for people that are strong in entertainment. I mentioned that I met this guy yesterday. He's a really famous director from Hollywood. He's moved to Vietnam. He started his own production company. He has so much things that an esports team like us could use. We could also use his experience. He has over 60 years of experience. Working with mainstream celebrities, artists. He can give us so much more than just money, and that's the kind of investor I like to look at, because they really give you a perspective on how to shape the business as well, and potential new business lines that you can build in the future. Maybe not now, but with future fundraisers, because most esport teams are keep raising, just to stay afloat, and it's not easy.
Yeah, for sure. And for anyone who might want to get in contact with you, whether they're an investor or whether they're interested in following your journey, where can they find you online?
I'll leave my email address here. It's Terence, TERENCE @teamflash.g. You can just drop me a note, or you just connect me on LinkedIn as well. I think this is on LinkedIn Live, so like just add me on LinkedIn, and we can chat from there. Yeah, I'm also happy to have a chat on anything esports, like not just investor or business related, but if you just want to know more about Southeast Asia or what's happening in specific countries or anything at all, feel free to drop me a line as well. I'm happy to chat.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us today, mate. And thanks to everyone for watching into LinkedIn Live. Some awesome names we see coming back, and we've seen some great growth here. Kind of, what would you call it? Stream on stream growth, I guess we've experienced here throughout doing these last podcasts. So awesome to see Kwesi Hayford back again, Troy Linforth, Shaggery Rayner, one of our investor panels here too. Awesome to see for the first time in here, Jamie, also Benson from Riot commenting, and so many other people coming in. So thanks for joining us today, Terence. Thank you for everyone who's watching. We'll have plenty more of these.
Thanks for coming.
See you later.
Cheers.